This is Hashtag History, episode 163. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And let me start this episode by just saying that Leah was sick for the last two episodes. And now I'm sick for this episode and also the next that we are recording today. So for the first half of this season, we're just phlegmy.
Yeah, phlegmy, a little nasally, perhaps. But...
Yeah. So it might lose the voice by the end of the episode. Now you know why I sound like my nose is plugged, because it is.
Dedication, really, people.
It's really, honestly, let's be real. Spending a Saturday afternoon sipping cocktails and talking about presidential assassinations, like. I could be on my deathbed and I would still want to do this. Like, this is my favorite thing. So is it dedication or is it passion and obsession? I really don't know. But what I will say is that I cannot believe that it has taken us this long to cover this week's topic. I mean, I really don't know how it's possible that we've made it through almost 200 episodes and have yet to talk about the assassination of President James Garfield.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You know, it's crazy, especially for you. But I'm going to be honest. I know nothing about this.
Okay. You just made me okay, hold on.
Are you so excited?
Yeah. Let's rewind to where I said, even on my deathbed, my favorite thing would be to sip on cocktails and talk about things like presidential assassinations. Let me add a third bullet point, is to talk about those things with someone that doesn't know that much about it.
Yeah.
Like,
to see their reactions. Yes.
I will literally come back to life off of my deathbed. For something like that. So that is great. And like you said, especially for me, the fact that we have not yet covered this is shocking, because you all do know about my affinity for the presidents and presidential history. And a lot of that does stem from, I know, I'm morbid. You all know that as well. It stems from presidential assassinations. I mean, that's where my interest in Lincoln started too. There's just so much lore and controversy and conspiracy wrapped up in these very public political assassinations. And this week's topic is no exception. So once again, this week, we are discussing the assassination of 20th President of the United States, James A. Garfield, an assassination that occurred in the summer of 1881. And the reason why I give it like more of a vague date of the summer of 1881, as opposed to like a specific date, is because although Garfield was shot on July 2nd of that year, he did not die until September 19th, a very slow and very painful death, largely attributed to the horrific lack of medical sanitation at the time.
Wash your hands, people.
Typhoid Marys are up in here. They are. Garfield's assassination is a particularly fascinating one, but one that goes forgotten amongst other presidential assassinations, such as Abraham Lincoln's and John F. Kennedy's. There's a number of reasons for this, many of which I will dive into later in the episode. But I think the largest one is likely because Garfield was only president for 4 months before he was shot.
Yeah.
This made Garfield the second shortest term president, coming in after 9th President William Henry Harrison, whom we recently learned in our American Presidents 101 Part 1 episode, all the numbers, that he died just 32 days into his presidency on account of giving the longest inaugural address in presidential history, nearly 2 hours, without a coat in the wet, cold weather, and he eventually developed pneumonia.
Yeah.
Despite Garfield's short tenure, I would like to also talk about him more in this episode, who he was as a person and his goals and his dreams for the presidency outside of his assassination, because he also was a pretty remarkable person. Before we do all of that, though, tradition does dictate that we cannot possibly discuss a presidential assassination without having something to drink. So let's do it. And I am really intrigued.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Hashtag History,
the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
I'm also very excited about this cocktail.
Yeah. I didn't say excited. I said intrigued.
Oh, I'm actually excited.
Okay.
You know me. I like bourbon.
That's true.
Spoiler. So this week's cocktail is generously sponsored by Elizabeth DeMario, who is actually, I don't know if you know this, Rachel, my dad's best friend from high school's wife.
I did not know that. And she has been a long time follower of the podcast. I see her name liking like almost all of our posts all the time.
Yeah,
I had no idea 7 years into this podcast that was someone you personally knew.
Yeah. And I feel like I knew that because, again, like I'm not in our Instagram as much as you are, but like I go in occasionally and I see it. And I think I remember seeing her name and not really thinking much of it. But I didn't realize, like, no, she's like actually sponsoring a cocktail.
She's one of our top followers.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I need to thanks Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's so cool. And also, what are the odds that so far, like this entire season has been sponsored by people you know in your personal life?
I know, that's the next line. So like there's Beth here, and then Elizabeth is Beth.
Okay.
And then there was Corinne.
I know.
All people that like I maybe knew were maybe listeners, but I didn't realize they were like,
oh
yeah,
listeners enough to sponsor a cocktail. That's really special.
Yeah. So Beth sent us a very simple but sweet note. She said, love your podcast and your cocktails. Cheers.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Beth. That is so sweet.
And tell Mick and Fiona I say, hey.
That's so cute. That's so sweet.
I know.
That's so cool. I had no idea.
Supportive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my own parents don't listen to this. So the fact that you do really.
Well, then, Beth, get on Leah's parents, okay? Like, listen, I'm over here sponsoring cocktails and liking every Instagram post. The least you can do is listen to 30 seconds of an episode.
Seriously. Okay, so this week's cocktail was shockingly easy for me to come up with, thanks to the Ohio Liquor website.
Oh.
Which had an entire article about Ohio presidents.
There's a lot of them.
Because we've talked about, there's actually a shocking amount of them.
Yeah.
And their favorite beveraginos. So
that's cool.
Isn't that very niche and perfect?
Wait.
What?
I've been inspired.
What?
For like a bonus episode of we're getting to the presidents yet again.
We're just going to follow this, drink all the drinks in this article.
Yeah, just what am I trying to say? My brain is foggy from this sickness. I'm like, that's silence. I have an idea.
She's doing jazz hands, people.
But like running back through those bullet points that I put together about each one of the presidents, but just the Ohio presidents. And we literally slammed through like 10 cocktails in one episode. How many Ohio presidents? Hold on.
I don't remember.
It's like
it's a lot. It's
7.
At least 7. Yeah.
If it's actually 7, you and I would do amazing in Jeopardy. It's 8.
Oh, damn.
But how fun. 8 cocktails in like 30 minutes. That would be fun.
Or something, you know?
Yeah, or something.
Okay. So according to the article, this is a direct quote. President Garfield's favorite beverage was beer. A friend noted that he liked beer and drank but little else, but he also loved peanut butter. Garfield once said, quote, "Man cannot live by bread alone. He must have peanut butter," end quote.
I like it.
Yes. In his honor, here's a recipe for a peanut butter old-fashioned. The sweet nuttiness of peanut butter combines with the fragrant oil of the orange and the herbal notes of the bitters in a way that makes the old-fashioned new again.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So the peanut butter old fashioned, I mean, it kind of just told you in that quote from the article, but it's basically peanut butter whiskey, or if you don't have peanut butter whiskey or can't access peanut butter whiskey, you can do whiskey and then like a peanut butter simple syrup, which is what I did. Also like more rye whiskey or bourbon, Angostura bitters, and then maple syrup to taste.
I did
too. I did a very little.
Me too. I just did like a drop. But hey, if it was an option, it's going in for me.
Yeah, and then you're supposed to garnish with an orange twist and or maraschino cherries. I did both.
Me too. The sweeter, the better.
Yeah, and I think we both have feelings about the separation of the peanut butter.
Yeah, we have feelings that we've been talking about for like a full week.
But I'll say, because I had to make so much of the peanut butter simple syrup, I've actually been using it in my coffee throughout the week.
Not with the whiskey.
Not with the whiskey.
Which when she told me that, that's what my thought was.
She was like,
that
"Oh,
she
good
was
for
dumping
you."
whiskey in her morning coffee. Good for you. How's work been this week?
And I will say the peanut butter simple syrup is actually quite good. So
yeah, I'm excited about peanut butter. I also do really enjoy old fashions.
If they're made good.
If they are made well. I think why I'm a touch hesitant is just like the range of flavors in it. We have whiskey, we have peanut butter, we have orange, we have cherries, we have Angostura bitters, we
I
have
know.
maple syrup.
I
It's
know.
like what is
What are we in for here?
I will say, in full transparency, so I think I've said this before on the podcast though, that when I'm recording from home, we're recording over Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and when I'm recording from home, I make two cocktails, one for my
Mhm.
husband. Okay, full transparency.
Yes.
He tried it before.
What did he say?
He said, "Ooh, that's a lot of alcohol."
Yeah, and that's the sense that I get as well. That it's going to be, because I licked the spoon after stirring it, and even licking the spoon kind of made my nostrils a little like, oh.
Maybe it'll help with my sinuses then.
Yeah, ours are slightly different colors too.
I know.
I wonder if it's the peanut butter syrup we just did
It is
differently.
the peanut butter syrup, and I also think mine had a lot of ice in it, which a lot of it has melted at
Same.
this point.
It's fine.
But yeah, he said that's a lot of alcohol, and he said this is definitely not a chugging drink. This is a sipping drink, which is
Yeah.
true of old fashions anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh.
Ooh. He was not wrong.
No, I mean there's like no mixer. It's
Yeah, there's no mixer.
pure alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and sugar.
Tiny amounts of sugar.
Mine's quite sweet actually.
Oh, I don't know if it's that mine just isn't that sweet, or you
Mhm.
know how when you're sick you can only really taste like certain flavors. I'm tasting alcohol and smelling peanut butter.
Oh, interesting. You
Yeah.
can still smell.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't smell peanut butter at all.
I definitely smell peanut butter.
I smell the orange.
I don't really know how to rate this one because truthfully, I am not in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if I put myself in the mindset of like, this is a sipping old fashioned,
You're sitting next to a fire in a leather
Exactly.
chair.
the point is that this drink is supposed to last you an hour.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I almost feel like it's an 8.
Oh my gosh.
Without that, it's like a 4. So I don't really know what to do with that information.
Here, okay. So if we're ranking it against other old fashions, then actually it's quite high for me because I like that peanut
I'm
butter.
there. I'm there.
But yeah, I think just like our regular rating, I wouldn't go as low as 4. But mine's like a 6 because I love bourbon.
I know you do.
I love it, guys. I don't know, I don't drink it straight, but I could.
So let's just put it an even 6 for both of us, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
I enjoy what I like about old fashions is the vibes of just like a sipping, elegant, sophisticated drink.
It makes me want to be. Oh my god! Forget what I was about to just say.
What were you gonna say?
It makes me feel or want to be like an old white guy.
Which she has never said before in her life. In fact, quite the opposite. So, but true, definitely. Like the most interesting man on earth. It makes you feel like that, right?
Yes, 100%.
So much for us being like, I don't know. We literally have stopped talking at this point just so we can drink it. Okay. Yeah, that was interesting. I like it.
I'm excited to get to the bottom so I can eat the cherries that I dropped in
me
there.
too.
I dropped 2.
For sure. I'm really excited about that part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first, before we begin, I want to give 2 shout outs because both of these things really helped me with putting together this episode. The first is a Netflix show that I'm going to try to turn you on to that just came out last year called Death by Lightning that talks all about James Garfield and his assassination.
Okay.
His assassin in the show is played by Matthew McFadden, which for anyone that has watched Succession or the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, you already have a crush on him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let that be your encouragement that you need to watch this show.
Okay.
And if Mr. Darcy isn't encouragement enough, the very fact that the show is only 4 episodes and each episode is like an hour each is very doable. So I really, really recommend it.
That in itself is a draw for me.
For sure. We have talked about this several times since having kids. The days of binging shows are no more. This was a show we were actually able to binge like after the girls went to bed. We were so into it that we binged the whole series, and that never happens anymore. Yes.
How late did you stay up?
It actually, I don't feel like it was that insane. It was like probably 11 to 12-ish, which for a one-time occasion didn't feel that crazy.
I was going to say that feels insane to me, but
it was a Netflix show about a presidential assassination with the dude from Succession. Okay,
right.
Nothing can stop me. being miserable the next day, I'll take it.
I'm going to be honest, Rachel, the only thing that keeps me out of bed past 10 p.m. is you.
Is me. Well, I feel honored. Thank you.
Our movie / excursions.
And that's what I was going to say. These are few and far betweens,
Yeah.
I do not stay up that late on the regular. And so on an occasion when Netflix decides to drop a whole series about a presidential assassination,
That it was basically they dropped it for you.
they really did. And if they didn't drop it for me, they dropped it for Mike over at Necronomipod, who is my next shout out.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
So we had him on the show what now feels like ages ago to talk about William McKinley's assassination. But Garfield's assassination is really his niche. He's read his biographies. He did a whole episode about it over on his podcast. He's from Ohio, so of course they have that connection. So you definitely want to check out that episode too. It was really well done and it helped me a lot with my own research. Okay, let's get into it.
I love it.
So let's talk about Garfield and who he was before we discuss his brutal, gruesome, untimely death. Shall we?
You don't want to just hop right into the gore?
I mean, let's be fair. I kind of do. But he also was like a really interesting person. So let's start with looking at a picture of him.
Oh yeah.
You let me know your thoughts.
Okay. I feel like I've definitely seen multiple pictures. Oh, yes.
Likely.
His eyes look pretty.
That's kind of what I was hoping you were gonna note.
Other than that, he looks like the person I said I wanted to be 5 seconds ago. Old white guy. He's sitting by a fireplace sipping on this drink.
This is what I think he's doing. He's sitting by the fire, sipping on an old fashioned with a separate spoon of just peanut butter. And he's going back and forth between the two. Am I right?
That sounds good.
Yeah, he's pretty mediocre, but his eyes look nice.
Eating peanut butter with that beard seems problematic.
You're so right about that. The man liked peanut butter. So he must have had a way of not getting it in the beard, or I guess we don't know. Hailing from Ohio, Garfield was a pretty impressive figure, especially considering the hand that he was dealt growing up in poverty and without a father. He eventually studied law and became an attorney, was a preacher and a general in the Civil War. He was a staunch opponent of slavery and tended to favor the approach of the more radical Republicans when it came to protecting civil and voting rights for freedmen and not extending grace to high-ranking Confederates. He actually was not a huge fan of Lincoln because he thought Lincoln was too soft on the Southern states. And I learned this from the Necronomipod podcast, but shout out to Mike again. He shared in their episode about Garfield that in a review of every single inaugural address between Lincoln in 1861 and Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965, Garfield was the only president in his inaugural address to even mention racial injustice.
Wow.
We're literally talking about from the time of slavery to the point of the civil rights movement. And no president ever once mentioned racial injustice in their inaugural speeches, with the exception of Garfield. That's crazy.
I'm not surprised.
Neither of us are surprised. Both of us are disappointed.
Yes.
Garfield served 9 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives and was actually elected to the Senate, but that was before his name was cast as the Republican presidential nominee for the 1880 election. Garfield had not intended to run for the presidency, and his being selected to do so was a bit controversial. So I'm going to set the scene.
Okay.
Ready? The scene is the Republican National Convention. The year is 1880.
Good year.
The tension is high. Okay, but seriously, this event sounds like a place I would never want to be. At this time, this was following the Civil War and the Reconstruction era. The Republican Party was split into essentially 3 parts. You have one part, which were the stalwarts, which were very traditional Republicans that valued the old school party ways and wanted Ulysses S. Grant to serve for what would have been an unprecedented third term. Then you had the half-breeds. No, this is not Harry Potter. I saw your face.
I literally, stalwarts, half-breeds. This sounds straight out of
Hogwarts.
Harry Potter. Yes.
These are the 1880 Hogwarts houses. So you have these half-breeds. They're more progressive. They're driven by reform, and they backed Senator and former Speaker of the House, James Blaine. These are the 2 big factions, and Grant and Blaine were the popular known names. But then you had Senator and former Secretary of Treasury John Sherman, who didn't really fit into either of these categories. But as the senator from Ohio, he really depended on Garfield to support him in his efforts to gain the nomination. And here is why I say things were tense and why I would not want to be in this room. The ballots were cast more than 36 times and were deadlocked every time.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah.
Like they can't leave the room until they decide. And they just keep casting the ballots over and over and over. And all these stubborn men that are set in their ways refuse to change their minds. And so they keep coming to the same result every single time. In his efforts to get this thing moving and convince his colleagues to nominate Sherman, Garfield stood up and apparently gave an insanely eloquent and thought-provoking speech. The Netflix show does a really good job of demonstrating how effective Garfield was at captivating the audience. And this piqued some interest. On the next round of ballots, Garfield's name started appearing, which he was not in the running. And in the preceding rounds, it appeared more and more and more. Again, the Netflix show does a really good job at this. It shows Garfield frazzled by the acknowledgments, but also like maybe sort of kind of wanting them to.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in the show, he's very much like, no, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I wanted. But then he has, there's a break where he goes to the restroom and another one of his colleagues is in there with him. And he's like, listen, someone doesn't make a speech like that unless they were interested. Like you were trying to draw attention to yourself. And so eventually Garfield was officially selected as the Republican candidate for the 1880 presidential election. This is just really wild, right? Like he was not even one of the names considered when they walked in the room. And then he walked out with the nomination.
He's like, me?
Who, me?
Who, me?
Who, me with this speech I definitely planned and rehearsed 100 times? No, I'm teasing. But it is really fascinating the way that these events turned.
Mm-hmm.
Garfield hosted what was called a front porch campaign, in which he quite literally held rallies and speeches directly from the porch of his house. He kept things really low key and did not travel far during his campaigning. Despite this low key approach, he did win the presidency that year, though it was tight. Mm-hmm. Garfield received 48.3% of the popular vote. His opponent, Winfield Scott Hancock, won 48.2%. Garfield, I was about to say, almost as tight as our last election, but hey, the other side was rigged. So Garfield was able to secure 412 electoral votes in comparison to Hancock's 155, however, because that's how the Electoral College works. Mm-hmm. As Garfield takes the White House, we now have to shift gears and look at the life of another man who's about to play a massive role in this story. This is a man by the name of Charles Guiteau. So I have a picture of him here that I would like you to describe. Don't feel that you need to be PC.
Okay.
Just tell it like it is.
He looks like William Dafoe, but with devil eyes.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
He's an 1880s version of Willem Dafoe,
mm-hmm.
with eyes that would pierce your soul and make rip your heart open and
just rip the soul right out. Yeah,
just rip your soul out of your body if you stare at them too long.
Yeah, let's be honest that William Dafoe is a weird looking person.
I mean, Green Goblin.
He is the Green Goblin. He is the Green Goblin. Yeah. So this is the Green Goblin, but with clear eyeballs. So I think because of his last name and the time period in American history and the overall stereotyping and profiling tendencies, I have seen a lot of people assume that Guiteau was an immigrant. Mm-hmm. He was not, and neither were his parents. They were all born and raised in the Illinois region.
Okay.
Guiteau really struggled growing up. He lost his mom at a young age, and his dad was awful, a man who beat him severely when he didn't perform academically as was expected. Guiteau floundered as a young adult. He planned to go to college, but he failed the entrance exam. And so following this, he joined the cult-adjacent Oneida community. They're a small religious communal group that believed that Jesus had already returned to Earth in AD 70, and therefore Earth is where you create a perfect and sinless world.
Are they also somehow connected to like plates or dishes or something? Oh my God, I'm going to look this up.
Oneida's a place in New York. So I wonder if these plates come out of there.
No spoons. I'm pretty sure.
Wait, no. It says, yeah, Oneida silverware is directly descended from a 19th century American free love religious commune known as the Oneida community.
Okay.
Whoa.
Look at me.
Look at you. What?
I was wrong. It wasn't plates. It was silverware.
I see plates. But either way, what?
Yeah, so like they're like still a common, like very common, like you might have Oneida silverware in your drawer, but apparently they descend from cultish. This cult.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, you just taught me something. Whoa.
I'm so
Hold on, we might have to
proud.
derail this entire episode. Like, why am I, for historical purposes only, considering buying a set? If I don't, like you said, if I don't already own some. That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Everyone check your plateware.
I don't know where I heard that. I think it was another podcast, but I don't know which one.
That's so interesting. And my assumption was like, no, it's not connected to this particular cult community. It's just that Oneida is a place and where this community was, and these plates came out of that place. That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I'm so fascinated, and I'm really going to go on a rabbit hole after this. Anyway, so this was the Oneida community. They're a group that believed in like group marriages, group sex. They had other kind of weird sexual practices. And this is why some historians say that Guiteau was once belonged in a sex cult.
Okay.
It's clear that Guiteau suffered from mental health issues. He had several delusions throughout his life, including believing he could run a successful newspaper circuit all by himself, and believing that had Horace Greeley won the 1872 presidential election, that just surely Greeley would hire Guiteau to be an international ambassador for the administration.
Well, obviously.
He tried to work as a lawyer at one point, but only never tried one case in which his client lost. He also was known to cheat people out of money and to have debt collectors steadily at his door. He was extremely abusive to his wife, and when she requested a divorce, he agreed to sleep with a prostitute so that she could show that he had been unfaithful, as adultery was one of the only ways that a woman could legally obtain a divorce in America in the 1870s. He's like, don't worry, honey, I'll take the bullet. I'll fall on the sword this time.
I got you.
Guiteau's misdeeds caught up with him. He was arrested and released several times for various acts of fraud. At one point, when he opened up that law practice and then closed it just a few weeks later, he was found to have stolen the majority of his clients' money. He wrote a book that was largely plagiarized. He anticipated favors from presidential candidates. I mean, this guy is like really just floundering. He started doing like a religious speaking tour, but left trouble in his wake as he didn't pay for his room or board at many of the places where he stayed.
Sounds like a really cool guy.
Yeah. The only thing cool about him is that Matthew McFadden played him. And he does so, oh my God, he does so well.
Wait, Matthew
like if
plays
you look
him.
Yes.
Oh.
He does a very good job of making you kind of feel for him, feel empathy, while also acknowledging that he has like severe issues that cannot be resolved without serious help. But finally, in 1880, Guiteau latched onto something: politics. While Republicans were still voting on who should be nominated as that year's presidential nominee, Guiteau wrote a speech for the candidate that he supported, Grant. He even wrote a whole speech called Grant Against Hancock that once he learned Garfield had won the nomination, he literally just swapped the name Grant out for Garfield without making any other real changes. It's like control find in a document and just swapping the names, but like nothing else lines up. Like all of Grant's accolades and achievements and stuff, he just left them, but applied them to Garfield instead.
Okay.
It's really cringe and really funny. I just think that perfectly demonstrates how desperate this guy was just to be involved in something without really truly believing in it himself. And that speech that he, swapped out the names there, he never even gave that speech publicly. He just distributed copies of it on paper, for which he did not pay the bill for, and really believed in his heart of hearts that speech was the reason that Garfield eventually won the presidency. He really believed that his speech, in which he last minute control find and swapped out the name of Grant for Garfield, was the reason that Garfield became the 20th president of the United States. And so, in return for what he believed was a great service to the new president, he demanded of the new administration a consulship in Vienna or Paris if he had to settle. Talk about the greatest example of someone that does not have imposter syndrome.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
like me, as someone that is 6 years in at my job, I still am like, should I be in this room right now where decisions are being made? This guy's like, I wrote this letter one time, and so I think you should send me to Paris.
Yeah. Like pay the bill. Yeah.
He skated by living on the streets of Washington, D.C., spending his time reading old newspapers so he could keep up to date with the president's schedule. He took advantage of the president's open door policy, where he met directly with members of the public when he was at the White House. And I should mention here really quickly that I'm calling it the White House just for continuity and understanding. But technically, at this time in American history, the White House was called the Executive Mansion. It wouldn't be called the White House until Teddy Roosevelt. But anyway, Guiteau showed up at the White House day after day and was frequently rejected. But finally, in March of 1881, Guiteau and Garfield actually did meet face to face for an in-person meeting at the White House.
Okay.
Unlike in the Netflix series where the two have a decent length conversation, in actuality, this meeting was extremely brief. Guiteau gave Garfield a copy of the speech he wrote. Garfield shook his hand, and that's pretty much it. But Guiteau proved to be such a nuisance at the White House over time that he was essentially banned. The correspondence he wrote to the president and cabinet went ignored, and the Secretary of State eventually screamed at him to get out, to never come around again, and to stop talking about a consulship that he would never, ever receive.
Yeah.
And that's when everything turned for Guiteau. I think with today's hindsight and knowledge, we know that that is not the response to give someone that's like struggling mentally,
Well,
right?
Yeah. I think, I mean, like mental health was so not
Didn't exist.
I mean, it didn't exist. Like, but it's hard for me to like. Obviously, this person is struggling. Like, it's hard for me to imagine people. It's not just one person, but multiple people could see that and like not be more concerned for him, or like, or even concerned for themselves.
100%. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about in a minute is like he was sending all the warning signs, and nothing was done. Things turned for Guiteau. This admiration he had once had for the president turned to disdain, and that disdain turned into violence. According to Guiteau, he believed that God had told him to kill Garfield, for that was the only way to unite the Republican Party and to bring real healing and unity to the United States as a whole. Before we dive into Guiteau's next steps, I think we do need to briefly look at the current state of presidential bodyguards or security at this point. And, well, there was none. So that was the brief look, and now we can carry on. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding about that being the truth. I'm kidding about that being the brief look, because of course I want to dive into it a bit further. But the fact of the matter is, in the 1880s, the president of the United States still did not have personal security or bodyguards.
And this was even after like Lincoln. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
This is after Lincoln. And also to that point exactly, I think a lot of people do know or remember that the Secret Service was established in 1865, the year that Lincoln was assassinated. So we just assume that presidents thereafter all had Secret Service detail, but that's not true. While the Secret Service was indeed established in 1865, serving as security for the president was not part of their scope. They primarily dealt in counterfeit currency fraud and schemes.
Interesting.
I know it feels weird now because of the terminology that we associate, right, with the president's security detail, but that just wasn't their role at the time. In fact, security detail for the president would not come under the Secret Service purview until after William McKinley was assassinated in 1901. So it would take 3 presidential assassinations before the president of the United States got dedicated security staff. That's wild.
That's wild. It's absolutely wild. When you're in a position of power like that, and there's people, crazy people out there. Absolutely crazy that there was no Secret Service.
And it not only it took 3 presidential assassinations, those assassinations were in like a pretty short succession. Right?
Yeah. Also, but on the flip side, just playing devil's advocate here, as we learn from Chasing Liberty and other, like having someone around you at all times when you're just trying to live your life.
Oh my God.
Probably gets kind of annoying. Shout out to Mandy Moore.
I think that's probably a lot of the pushback, right? And having like a dedicated security detail was the nuisance that they pose, right? Having someone following you around all the time. But guess what?
Yep.
I mean, in the span of 40 years, 3 presidents died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but back to Guiteau and not the Hawkeye from Chasing Liberty. After this slight from the Secretary of State, Guiteau went out and purchased a .422 Webley revolver with money that he had borrowed from a family member. The story about this gun is interesting, and it certainly speaks to his vanity and his need for notoriety. He was presented with 2 different versions of this gun at the shop, one with a wooden grip and then one with an ivory grip. He decided to go with the ivory grip because in his delusional mind, he believed an ivory gun would look better in a museum one day than a wooden one. Speaking of which, this ivory gun was once in a museum. It was on display at the Smithsonian. That was until sometime before the 1950s when it went missing.
Fun.
To this day, we do not know where this gun is, and that is alarming.
I'm alarmed. Mm-hmm.
I'm alarmed. There is a gun that was used to assassinate a president just floating around somewhere, hopefully locked away in someone's attic that they don't even know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Guiteau wrote all kinds of letters to the White House and to the Army general warning that he was going to do this. He even requested a tour of the jail in DC so that he would know what kind of accommodations they had before he was sent there, as he expected he would be placed there following the assassination. So this goes back to what you were saying before. Sometimes, we'd look at things that happen and we're like, man, if I had just seen the signs. He's writing letters with the signs.
Yeah.
Like the signs aren't even signs. They are signed letters. Right? Like it's sad and predictable what happened.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's interesting because I think a lot of people were, I'm assuming they were just like, oh, he's harmless, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, at what point does it become not alarming and not?
Yeah. At what point does
harmless?
it cross that line?
Yeah.
On July 2nd, 1881 would be the answer.
Okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, nobody listened to the cries of a desperately mentally ill man. And on July 2nd, 1881, Guiteau followed Garfield to the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in DC, where he was set to board, Garfield was set to board a train to go on a family vacation. 2 of his kids were with him that day, as well as his Secretary of State and his Secretary of War, who was none other than Robert Todd Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's oldest son.
Oh, great.
Robert Todd Lincoln, not only is he here when this is about to happen, he also would be at the Pan American Exposition when McKinley was shot. Talk about tragedy and having mental health issues. Am I right?
Oh.
Robert Todd Lincoln was quoted as saying about DC, quote, "How many hours of sorrow have I passed in this town?" Unquote.
That's really sad.
It's really sad. I actually got to see his tomb at Arlington when I was there, and it was really, really amazing.
Wow.
As Garfield entered the train station, Guiteau shot at him in the back twice. The first bullet grazed his shoulder. The second went through his back, through the first lumbar vertebra, going past the spinal cord, but not striking it, and settling just behind his pancreas. Garfield fell to the ground as Guiteau rushed from the scene. Guiteau was headed for a cab that he had convinced to wait for him until he had assassinated the president, because of course he did. Of course he arranged his transportation, right? Mm-hmm. But he was caught by a policeman who had heard the gunshots. Guiteau was taken to the local police station where he rejoiced that he had killed the president and that Chester Arthur, the vice president, could be president now. Which, like, did Guiteau really care about Arthur being president? Of course not.
No.
But once again, he was desperate to latch onto something, anything.
Maybe Arthur would send him to Paris.
I would. Go. Let me know what other accommodations you need. Garfield was initially treated on the upper floor of the train station before eventually being transferred to the White House. Despite the initial conclusion that there was no way he would survive a bullet wound, especially when the bullet was still lodged inside his body, his condition actually wasn't too bad. It was looking like he might actually recover. But over the next few months, his condition worsened significantly. And most likely not because of the actual wound itself, but because of the absolute lack of proper sanitation that existed at this time. It took a long time for germ theory to take root. We've talked about this in past episodes, I think most specifically in our Typhoid Mary episode. Few people believed that invisible germs could spread and kill, right? I actually had a flashback all the way back to our Black Death episode, which was like episode 8 or 9 or something like that, where the common theory at the time was people were passing the plague just by making eye contact with each other. There was just like no concept whatsoever of invisible germs that could contaminate people.
Which is just, it's really hard to like fathom. Like obviously at the time, how would they know, right?
Fair.
I mean, they had microscopes, so
yeah. at this particular time, not the Black Death time. At this particular time, right. Yeah.
But it's just really hard to fathom, like that there was a time where people didn't think washing their hands helped be clean.
None of these people saw the Mythbusters episode where there were literal poop particles on the toothbrushes, right? Now I want to go wash my hands.
I know. I gotta go throw out my toothbrush.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. And toss my toothbrush. So even though hand hygiene had started to become a thing roughly 30 years before this incident, it still was not a standard practice. And beyond that, the sanitizing of medical equipment didn't even start to become a thing until just a few years before this incident. So again, it wasn't a practice that was standard or across the board at this time. It's widely believed by the vast majority of historians that it was the doctors poking and prodding at the gaping hole in Garfield's back with their bare fingers and unwashed medical utensils that eventually did him in. Yeah. Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, actually created a metal detector to help him locate precisely where the bullet was inside Garfield's body. But in combination with the bed frame that Garfield laid on being made of metal, and the fact that his primary physician, Dr. William Bliss, yes,
his first name is Doctor.
Yes.
Wait, are you joking?
No, I'm not joking at all.
That was a typo.
No. I do make frequent typos in my my notes. No, that's really
He really lived up to his parents' expectations.
The way that you were like, yeah, that was his first name. I thought that you knew this. You're like, yeah, everyone knows about Dr. Bliss. No, I kid you not. This is not a typo. This is definitely one of those cases where his parents gave him no choice.
No, I mean, what is he going to be, a lawyer? Like, are you kidding?
That would be a doctor of law. He might be able to be a lawyer. He certainly cannot be an accountant or really anything else.
Artist.
Right? Yeah.
A painter.
Oh my God, he would have fallen so short of expectations. But no, Doctor, I kid you not, refused to let Alexander Graham Bell use the tool on the left side of Garfield's body. The assumption why he refused to let him do this is because this was like so much effort on Garfield's part. Like he's literally dying and wasting away. So his doctor was like, let's not have to roll him around. Let's not move him more than we have to and exert more energy than is necessary. And so he refused to let Bell use the tool on the left side of Garfield's body. And so Bell was unable to find the bullet.
Why didn't they just stick a magnet in there?
That sounds really disgusting. Like this poor man, I really do. Like this is really horrible.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. Yes.
It feels like a really horrible story. And this also feels like a good time to mention that although Dr. Bliss was Garfield's primary physician, Garfield was treated by several other doctors throughout the end of his life, including Charles Purvis, who was the first Black doctor to treat a sitting U.S. president. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
They were determined to find the bullet, though, even though Bell's technique didn't work and they did not use a magnet. And so to get it out, you can imagine how brutal these efforts were. Day in and day out, the doctors were sticking their unwashed fingers into his wound and poking around without anesthesia, causing the president to writhe with pain. Get ready. Hold your stomachs.
I don't want to.
Sorry.
It's okay.
At one point, they even opened up what was a 3-inch deep wound further, eventually making it into a 20-inch long incision, extending the length of his ribs to his groin in order to find the bullet, but still to no luck. This is where malpractice comes into play, right? Like he's not a guinea pig. He's not without pain. He is a human being with a wife and kids and still presidential responsibilities. And I feel like when I hear this story, they were treating him like a test subject. Like, let's just slice this dude in half and see if we can find this thing. He's alive.
Yeah.
Garfield's body, unsurprisingly, was taken over by infection. There were moments in the Netflix show that I had to look away because, I don't like the P word.
Mm-hmm.
You know which one I'm talking about. The 3-letter P word.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had to look away multiple times from the show because there was a lot of the 3-letter P word.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really, really brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Garfield could barely eat. He was on a liquids only diet and could oftentimes not even keep that down. He went from 210 pounds to 130 in just a matter of weeks.
Oh, geez.
As it became clear that Garfield was nearing the end of his life, he was placed on a train to take him to his cottage in Long Branch, New Jersey, where he would have his wife and his family by his side. And I don't think you're ready for this part, how cool this is. Okay, this is not, I can see you wincing. I see your face because every time I've said you're not ready for this, it has bad. To do with it's been bad. This is cool.
Okay.
How he got to his family cottage is like the coolest part of this whole story, and I am shocked that the Netflix show did not show this. This is the coolest part of the Garfield assassination story to me.
Okay.
So clearly Garfield, he's not in great conditions to travel.
Mm-hmm.
It was realized that the nearest train stop to the cottage was still a mile away and would require Garfield to be transferred to yet another mode of transportation to reach his destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hundreds of volunteers got together and leveled the ground and quite literally laid train tracks, creating a whole new set of train tracks that led straight to the front steps of the cottage.
Oh.
Toward the end of his train ride, there was a bit of a hill and the train stopped. So dozens of volunteers stood at the back end of the train and pushed it all the way to its final destination. That's amazing,
that's
right?
Really, that's like, oh, human beings aren't just total shitheads.
That was heartwarming. Now let's get back to the gross stuff.
Yep.
I know, but that is like so cool, right? Like
cool.
that is a story from history we should definitely know more about. And people should be talking about that more. It's so neat and so cool and so heartwarming about humanity. Just 2 weeks later, on September 19th, 1881, Garfield uttered his last words, quote, this pain, unquote, and died. He must have been in excruciating pain.
I can't even imagine.
I can't imagine. He ultimately died from a heart attack and massive hemorrhaging, all brought on by septic blood poisoning. In the end, we know that the bullet had missed his spinal cord and had not hit any major arteries or organs. So Guiteau may not have been all that wrong when he was later quoted as saying, quote, the doctors killed Garfield. I just shot him, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
As for Guiteau, he was brought to trial that November for the assassination of the 20th president. Speaking once again to his delusion, he genuinely had no idea that he was one of the most hated men in America at the time. He really genuinely believed that he had done a service to all Americans by getting rid of Garfield, a task he really genuinely believed had been assigned and ordained by God. His eccentric behavior followed him into the courtroom as he testified in the form of long poems and asked for legal advice from people in the audience. He initially tried to represent himself, but the court appointed him an attorney. That's pretty bad when the court's like,
no.
This would be unjust to let you represent yourself.
Yeah.
So he gets a court appointed attorney who literally quits a week into the trial.
I mean, yeah.
Right. Guiteau's brother-in-law, who was an attorney, then stepped in to fill the role, definitely out of just like familial obligation.
Yeah.
His was one of the first high-profile cases where an insanity defense was used. Guiteau really believed he was going to get off and even started planning to run for president himself when he was found innocent. But alas, on January 25th, 1882, Guiteau was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. While in prison, he wrote an autobiography titled The Truth and the Removal, which he believed would justify why he had killed Garfield. I've actually read some of it.
Really?
It's madness. No amount of old fashions could make it make sense.
Oh,
I know.
I mean, that's not surprising. Yeah.
No, of course not. He appealed his case, sought pardon from the now President Chester Arthur, but was denied. He was hanged on June 30th of that year, just 2 days shy of the 1-year anniversary of the shooting at the train station. He was clearly nervous, tripping over his feet as he headed for the gallows. As he recited a poem he had written that morning titled, "I am going to the Lordy," he stumbled and sobbed. I was going to read the whole poem here, but my God, it's long. If I were one of the executioners, I would seriously be like, dude, hurry it up.
Or you'd be like, yeah, keep it going. I'm paid hourly, guy.
Yeah, this is not by hanging, it's by hour. So yeah. Is there a part 2? Please continue. But just to give you some insight into his mind, just minutes before his death, I want to read you just one part of it. It says, quote, "I saved my party and my land, glory hallelujah. But they have murdered me for it, and that is the reason I am going to the Lordy. Glory hallelujah. Glory hallelujah, I'm going to the Lordy," unquote. Disturbingly, apparently after they cut Guiteau's body down, neck broken and all, they were still able to detect a pulse for another 15 minutes before it officially stopped. And if you were ever so keen as to see Guiteau's skull and spleen, is that right? Wow, I write my own poems.
Yeah.
Both are on display actually at the National Museum of Health and Medicine, and his brain is on display at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia.
Ooh, Hawaii?
Hawaii. And that's the tragic story of the assassination of 20th President James A. Garfield.
Wow.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that Garfield's assassination is largely forgotten, especially in comparison to Lincoln's and Kennedy's.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's for a myriad of reasons. One being the one that I've already mentioned, that he was only president for such a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think Guiteau is actually also a large role in why this story is forgotten. He's eccentric and he's interesting and he's clearly deranged. But unlike John Wilkes Booth or Lee Harvey Oswald, he didn't carry along with him all these deep conspiracy theories that fostered stories of involvement of the CIA or the mafia or a big ring of Confederate sympathizers, right?
Right. He was just obsessed.
Exactly. It's more cut and dry.
Yeah.
There's a clear correlation between like someone that was mentally unstable,
Mm-hmm.
said he was going to kill the president, wrote letters to people about killing the president, and then he did kill the president.
Yeah.
Versus to this day, 50 plus years later,
people still
are
question.
We're still questioning, was it actually Lee Harvey Oswald? Was there another shooter? Was this the CIA? And so on. And then finally, I think it's worth noting that the country was in a quote unquote boring timeline at the moment.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, you and I, in our lifetime, being born in the early 90s, now to 2026, we've never known a boring timeline. But, you know, we weren't just coming out of the Civil War. We weren't in the midst of the 1960s revolutions. And so a president getting assassinated during a boring period in American history is easily forgotten.
Hey, listen, the Newsies strike would happen just a few years after this. So I don't know what you're talking about.
You're right. That was the most pivotal moment in American history as far as you're concerned. There's a reason why it's an easily forgotten assassination, but of course, certainly not by me.
Not by you.
And hopefully now, not by any of you either.
Honestly, it's the gash size, the like you said, from his ribs to his hip.
Groin.
Is that what you said? His groin.
Yeah. It's that. Ugh. It's the fact that he may have survived.
Oh, absolutely. You saying like, oh, he seemed in good condition. Mm-hmm. They were just trying to get the bullet out. Like,
it only worsened after they were trying to get the bullet out.
Yeah.
Like if they had just left it alone, his body may have just worked around the bullet.
And like he might have had complications or issues.
Definitely.
But like, would he have lived? Yeah.
Andrew Jackson lived his whole life with a bullet.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were complications, but he lived. He went on to become president.
Yeah.
And it it's one of those what ifs, what could have been had Garfield been president. He was one of those more radical Republicans that may have pushed for, Reconstruction had already ended by the time of his presidency, but there were so many repercussions still from Reconstruction that we still see to this day.
Yeah.
But certainly immediately after that, could he have remedied some of those things? It would be fascinating to know what he could have done.
I'm sorry to end this though. I just keep picturing one of those those extendable things with magnets on the end. That's what I'm picturing. They could have poked into the hole to get the bullet and fish around a little bit.
But before you do that, sanitize the tool.
Just a little alcohol. That's all I'm asking.
I know you all had it. He had old fashioned all day, every day. You certainly had it around.
Yeah.
Rub a little peanut butter on it. Be done.
Maybe skip that step, but
Yeah.
he would have enjoyed it. But
Poor guy. We didn't mean it. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History.
we will share the pictures that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram, and all sources used to put together the episode can be found on our website at #history-pod.com.
A special thank you to my husband, Alex, for editing the podcast. You're the best as always.
Always.
Hopefully you're drinking a drink while editing this.
This is a long one.
It's a long one. Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use. Share about us with your family and friends, and then give us a rate and review, which apparently your family and friends do not need to continue sharing about us, since it's your family and friends that have
Supporting
supported
us.
this entire podcast.
Well, not my family, remember.
Your family friends.
only people on the periphery of my...
Mhm. Your family's friends.
Correct, yeah. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. We're at #history_podcast.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. This is really a place where you can just support the podcast, and in exchange for your support, you'll receive an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.